But I tell you honestly, though, the most effective work was, or is still, when I'm able to deal with people one-on-one. Because when you do the online classes, people tend to they'll buy them, but they usually don't take them as seriously. It's almost like buying a book and just throwing it on the shelf, as opposed to being in a space with them and connecting with their chemistry and looking them in the eyes and, things like that. So, I mean, if you can do it in person, it takes longer, of course, as you know, to grow your situation like that, man. But you'll have more dedicated people, because they'll really, they'll connect with you, and a lot of this is, it's about the spiritual aspect, but most of it is about the psychological aspect. It's about, how to talk to people, how to help people. You already know the answer that, you already know what they need to be doing, but it's like, how do you say it to them? So in person, it's a lot easier to get that off, to connect with someone psychologically, and kind of see where they're at, look at their body language, things like that,
I appreciate that, bro. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's all good.
That's exactly how I feel, man. Exactly how I feel. I've been feeling that way for a while. Like I take care. I didn't even see a message on Facebook because I took a break from that and stuff. Just all that stuff is just real creepy at the end of the day. It really is. Doing shows, you got all these people listening. Like, who are you? I don't know you. I don't know you. I know somebody's picking up what they need to pick up, but like from my perspective, because I'm just now starting to really begin teaching on a massive level like that. I mean, I got particular people I guide and mentor or whatever, but I feel like I have more of a connection with them. But when you have these anonymous people, man, it gets kind of creepy, to be honest. It's a little creepy.
No, it is, man, because this is not really. I mean, the internet and everything is great for introductions. But it's like you don't want to live in that world. It's just like if you meet a counterpart that you may be interested in, you ask for their phone number. Well, I guess not, you ask for their Instagram and Twitter nowadays, but you ask for some type of contact method, but you don't want to keep it there. That's just kind of to get the door open so that we can have a real organic encounter. So I think too with a lot of, what it is with people who listen in or whatever, they kind of become addicted to that digital encounter, the artificial. They put their avatar up and they can be whatever personality they want to be in that instance, man. But, you need to have that organic contact. You need to be able to talk to people, man, drink water together, sit around a fire together, whatever. Drink some liquor together, whatever it is, but you gotta have that organic contact, man, because outside of that, man, it does get a little weird. I wanted to ask you, what exactly is it that you do?
Well, labels, for one thing, as you know, whenever you label something, you automatically restrict it. But since we live in a society where you have to use words to express yourself, what I do is under the umbrella of metaphysics. I study, I teach, and I apply metaphysics. And metaphysics, for those who are not aware of what that is that which is beyond the physical. So we're talking about causal effect and things that permeate this reality, so to speak. I also do counseling during consultations, like I like to put it as spiritual consultations or intuitive counseling, where I help clients and students remove blocks that they may not see or may see and are able to remove from looking at it from a spiritual aspect, because most things that we deal with in this reality has a spiritual resonance to it. And when you focus on the effect, which most people do, then you get more of the effect. I mean, the movie The Secret taught you that. So when we get with blocks and we get with things that we're trying to accomplish in this reality, you have to look at it from a spiritual component. And that's obviously opposite of what they teach in school and religious, mostly, and in different sects of that nature.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How exactly did you come to this understanding?
Like with everything is a doorway leading to another doorway, or a step leading to another step. And my particular path in this incarnation, my awakening came with our oldest son, who is 12 now. Was diagnosed with what they term as eczema, which is a skin disorder. But after coming into some knowledge and information, by way of Tahuti Ma'ara, actually I name dropped the individual, whose articles I first came across. It was Tahuti Ma'ara when he was with dherbs.com. And, I started learning that the skin condition was a blood disorder, and it dealt with mucus and inflammation, which causes the skin to become red and irritated and blister up and things of that nature. So the defining moment that had me look into that area of holistic health was his mother took him to the doctor for like a regular checkup or visit because his condition was getting bad. It was getting worse. And the doctor, for whatever reason, I know spiritually why he did it now, but for whatever reason, the doctor basically treated them like second-class citizens, so to speak. Basically didn't want to look at my son and treated my wife with, you know, in a way that you shouldn't treat a patient or a customer. And long story short, she came home and she was very upset, and that really started me on my journey as far as getting the knowledge that was not taught in mainstream media or mainstream schools. And that's how I came across Tahuti Ma'ara and his articles. And it started with the knowledge of holistic health. And also I did a lot of research and knowledge into the history of slavery, which is another thing that's really not taught the correct way once you do the knowledge and the information that's put forth. And after that, my mind was wrapped around mysteries, finding out why, you know, what's this whole extraterrestrial thing about? You know, what are spirits all about? And also I had some experiences when I was younger, and one in particular when I was 6 years old that just stuck with me all my life, and I couldn't make rhyme or reason out of it. But after being on my path now, I just got a revelation as far as what happened when I was 6 years old, not too long ago, to be honest. But it's one of those things where it seemed like one door led to another door, and the spirit started directing me and guiding me. And once I became cognizant that I am being guided by a force that's greater than my physical being, everything started to line up once I connected with the particular energies that were working with my consciousness. And that, like I said, led to one thing after another that got me to the point where, hey, it's time to share this with others. And that's what prompted me to start writing articles, doing a radio show, and after that, that's what got me connected with particular people that I help on a daily basis. And you know how it is. Like they say, when the teacher's ready, students will appear, and vice versa. Well, that's exactly what happened. Teachers came in, and students came in. It was like a revolving door.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you, what was what has been the greatest obstacle in your pathway to going to the next door, as you say, opening that next door?
This is one of them things where I think a lot of people would not be honest with themselves at first, is for some reason when we come into this human body, a lot of us have a fear of accepting our divinity and our greatness. We talk about that we're children of the Most High. We talk about that we derive from gods and we're gods in human form. But when you really get away from all just the words and the popular catchphrases, a lot of us at first are scared to look in the mirror and realize our greatest potential. You know, and I was one of the children that grew up. I was very self-conscious. I was very sensitive. You know, I always had a sort of a swag about myself, and it was always popular by way of playing sports and just, you know, going to school. Just, you know how it is in school, whatever. But it's still a part of me once I came into that there was something beyond this physical realm. You know, and the only thing that can really change your mindset from focusing on that which is physical to that which is spiritual or metaphysical is by having direct experiences. That validates that there is something beyond this realm. But one of the greater challenges I had initially was my fear of being great, my fear of connecting with that divinity. And there was certain synchronistic events and certain situations where people were placed in my path to let me know, you know, you are this, you are that. And it was always around the time when you really needed to hear it, because I was starting to tell myself that, you know, from a higher aspect of myself. And once that got channeled to the particular people that, you know, confirmed or sort of validated that notion that I was already feeling, you know, it started to increase my enlightenment path exponentially after that.
Okay. One of the things that she said was that, you know, as you began to really encompass or embody this energy as a master student, or a student, that it was like a revolving door and teachers came, students came. How did you deal with the exiting of certain people out of your life? And I'll give you an example. Like, if you had a teacher who came into your sphere or in your orbit, and they were able to really impart, you know, some good lessons on you, how did you deal with them no longer being present? Was that a challenge for you?
Well, we all have a beginning blueprint, so to speak, when we come in the flesh. And this is predicated on your previous travels and previous incarnations. And one of the things I came hardwired with was, for one, it was always hard for me to show vulnerability to other people. I wasn't one of the people that wore my emotions or wore my heart on my sleeve. I was always growing up, I wasn't the one that fall head over heels for the opposite sex and things like that. But also with that, I was never really attached to certain people. Even when I lived more of a mundane lifestyle, I kept very few friends around me. I was very comfortable with being by myself. So I'm positive that I came hardwired with that gene, so to speak, or that spiritual DNA that doesn't allow me to get attached to really physical things and more specifically physical people. And early on my path, I realized that everything happens for a reason. And one of the mottos I live by is, don't worry about things you can't control. So when things happen, I know that it's right, true, and exact, and that it's the way it's supposed to be. So when people came into my life and when people came out of my life, I took it with a grain of salt. I looked at it like that's the way it's supposed to be. But I always look at everybody like, you know, this is what I learned from this person. And sometimes people will tell you, you know, this is what I learned from you or whatever. But I always put myself as a student first, because when I came into knowledge, when I started having my experiences and when I started increasing my download capacities with particular forces or whatever, it was one of the things that I didn't come into it like, I want to share this with other people. I want to change the world. I want to, you know, go around and save the baby, so to speak. I came into it as a pure student, and I just wanted to know. With that Scorpion and North Node and Gemini Ascendant, that gives me the propensity to want to gather information. So when I first came into the knowledge, came into the information, that's all I did. You know, from when I woke up until when I went to sleep, and I was in a position in my life where I wasn't worried about bills and finances, I was able to do that. So I would say the best way I can answer that question is, I wouldn't say married to the information, but I'm more focused on the experiences and not so much the messenger. More focused on what the messenger has to say that sticks with me, because I know that people in the physical will always pass, but the light that you receive from them is everlasting.
Okay, interesting. Let's talk about this light for a moment. How do we define light in the sense of, you know, we're speaking about spirituality and we're speaking about metaphysics, and, you know, one of the terms, or really even one of the gifts that are often thrown around, is light. People say, I send you light, or I send you light and love. What exactly is this light?
Okay, yeah. And this is one of the things where we get into semantics, and that's why when you start using words and stuff, a person can view one word a certain way and another person can view it another way. So I think that's beautiful that we kind of establish how I'm using the word. From my own perspective, and let me preface it like this. We're in a time right now where the old ways are not what we're supposed to be doing. Like you hear people say, we're not going back and creating pyramids now. It's a new day and age. And with that, we have to start defining words ourselves. You know, if you look at the etymology or dictionaries, like the origin of words, if you look at the origin of a word before, and you look at the origin, or you look at the definition of a word currently, there's usually a discrepancy, and it's usually, you would think they were antonyms or opposite words or opposite meanings, because things change by way of semantics, by way of cultures and things of that nature. So when I speak of enlightenment, my personal definition of enlightenment, and you can adopt it, or you can add on to it, or you can not use it whatsoever. But my definition of enlightenment is spiritual information, and more importantly, spiritual experiences. That is, from my perspective, how one becomes enlightened, by having spiritual knowledge, which is usually what comes first, mostly, and then having experiences based off that information or knowledge.
Okay. Now, what I found was interesting about your use of the word light, which led me to ask the question, was because of the statement, you said about people coming and going and in your journey, but you're not necessarily trying to attach yourself to them or cling to them or create this, deficit model within your own self where you have to have these people around. So it almost gives one the impression that light is more of an indifferent or universal substance. And, we're all striving to be a part of that greater pool or that greater globe of light. In certain times, like it's almost like droplets will come down, and they'll come down in the form of people, but you don't really have to feel a whole lot of sorrow about those people physically leaving, because you're all still connected to that giant globe of light. Now that's, what I just saw when you were saying that. So, which may not be the same thing as the definition, but I would almost want to presume a bit, for people who have a disposition such as yourself, who are able to let go, able to detach, which is one of the main foundational requirements to enlightenment. I think it's because people with disposition like your own, you recognize that the light can be found in many different places. And just because a person isn't physically present, because they have that light in them and you have the light in them, theoretically, you're still always connected to one another. You're still on the same road, but, you just have shape shifted, so I found that to be interesting. Let me ask you about this human journey. Why are we here?
Whew, man, we could spend the rest of the conversation to speak on that. To condense it and make it palatable for a general audience, and that's why it's important for people like ourselves that work with people one-on-one, because everyone's situation is different. What you feed a baby is not the same thing that you feed maybe like an elderly person. You have to feed information accordingly to the vessel that is in front of you or that you're communicating with. But as far as this journey that we call this human experience, from my perspective, in one sense, we're here to balance or work out karma. Most people accept the fact that it's like, if you believe the pose, most people in the world do believe in reincarnation. And in particular in the U.S. is a growing trend of more and more believers of reincarnation. So when you look at everything in its totality, the way I kicked it to someone who asked a similar question, one of my students, I said, why would you judge a book, based off one sentence and not the whole book? When we look at one single incarnation, it is a sentence in the book. What chapters came before this sentence? You were something before you came here. What were you? So based off what you did before is going to be your starting point, so to speak, in this incarnation. That's why you have certain gifts that you come with, and that's why you have certain weaknesses that you come with. But there's a system within each being that strives to be better than they were before. We do this as far as sports. We do this as far as school. We do this on so many different levels that we want to do better than we did before. That's the same thing with this incarnation that you're currently in. So the part of one facet or aspect of this human journey is to balance out karma. That's why sometimes you incarnate to a family that you may have an abusive father. Well, you possibly in a previous lifetime could have been the person abusing your father in this lifetime. So we have to balance things out. And if you look at nature, nature is about balance. Nature is about destroying and rebuilding. The only way for things to be infinite, it has to go through a cycle of regeneration, scorpion energy. So that's one aspect, and we can get into different other aspects dealing with we all serve a purpose. For the creator to experience itself on a physical level, there's so many different facets to that. But I would say one of the main things that people need to realize, especially when you're new on this path, is you have to balance your karma. You have to make good on what was bad before. And I'm using these terms very loosely, very loosely, just to put it in context with the conversation. But we all have an internal system that let us know, what I'm doing is correct. The best way people tell you is if you wouldn't do that when someone's not looking, then you shouldn't do it when someone's looking. Would you do that if someone was looking? So you have to really be brutally honest with yourself. And I feel that's one of the most important things while you're being a human is being brutally honest with yourself. That's one of the very important things on the path. When you look at people who are oblivious or make excuses for themselves, a commonality with that is they never grow. When you get to people that always say they did this and they did that, they did this, I call them day-days. They never point the finger at themselves. And we always hear the phrase, you point one finger, you got all these fingers pointing at you. That's very true. When you point fingers, you really are pointing at yourself because everything that's in your path is a reflection of you. So if you have a partner that you do not agree with, there's a part of yourself that you're not honest with working on it. Therefore, the creator or the spirits, the guides, whatever you want to call them, have put something on your path to mirror your actions because you're not getting it with your human brain. So maybe you need to see it right in front of your face in HD for you to get and understand that, hey, I may need to change something. It's as simple as that. But when you get into a mindset of everything else outside of you, then everything outside of you is the only thing that can change you. And we know that enlightenment can never go like that when someone else is in the driver's seat of your path.
Okay, thank you. So now let me ask you this. As a teacher or as an instructor for other people, and as you've mentioned, you've served as guide to some people, sharing some of your experiences and some of your perspectives. What do you find to be maybe the top 3 misconceptions that people come into their learning with you with? What are the top 3 things that you see that may be common that people come in with as far as their perceptions of themselves or spirituality or metaphysics? And are those perceptions correct or not?
Wow. That's another question we could spend a whole conversation discussing. One of the main things I see, not only with students, but also with humanity in general, is human thought versus spiritual thought. Many people have human thoughts, and obviously when we come into this reality, especially here in the West, United States in particular, we indoctrinate at an early age with these false sense of teachings, starting with the elementary school and going all the way into the American dream of a white picket fence and a safe, comfortable job and living in the suburbs. That right there locks you into the physical realm. So one of the main things I see with my students and also humanity in general is we're stuck on physical, ego-filled thoughts. And that's another word that's synonymous with physical thoughts. The way I look at things is, especially from a teaching aspect, is I like to polarize things. So with the physical, we have to say the spiritual. With the left, we have to say the right. With the good, we have to say the bad. So I teach and I see things from that level. So when I see someone or when I'm feeling the vibration of someone, I can tell if that's coming from a higher aspect of their being or if that's coming from a lower aspect of their being. It's not so much what someone says, it's the vibration in which they say it. And for those who are able to read energy, we feel that. And we know, okay, that's coming from a lower chakra, or that's coming from a higher chakra, or that's kind of upstairs with it, or that's downstairs with it, And that's a major problem that I see with people. And it's one of those things where, if going back to that, brutally honest with yourself, I was having a conversation with one of my students the other day, and they were in a situation where they had a physical possession. I don't even want to be real specific, but they had a physical possession that basically wasn't serving them any use. Long story short, The possession is something that they were financing, and they still had to finance it, or still had to pay for it, even though it wasn't functional. But I didn't want to steer them all the way, but I dropped so many hints to let them know that that physical possession is something that they didn't need at the time, that it was mostly serving the ego. You know, I didn't say it like that, but I said it in so many words so he can wrap his mind around it. And later, like probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours after we spoke, he texted me and said exactly what I was hinting at, but didn't say explicitly to him that the possession wasn't serving him and that he can use that money on working on himself spiritually. That is spiritual thought versus human thought, where your human thought would make every reason why you need to keep this physical thing. That's the difference. So that's one example, and we can go on and on about different examples between human thought and spiritual thought. So that's one of the things. Going back to what I was saying earlier, a lot of people do not see divinity within them. Humans have the mentality of playing the victim. You know, we're never good enough. We're not worthy. For those who go to like the Sunday service, like, you know, most of them don't even read their Bible. And as we know, as occultist metaphysicians, we know that the Bible is probably one of the most esoteric occult writings that there is, you know?
Yeah.
And in that book, it tells you, you are gods and all of you are children of the Most High. No God is down here as a broke, poor righteous teacher, suffering mentality. That's not a true thinking of a God. You know, a God is here to create. So what are you creating? What are your fruits? What are you putting into? But when you invest your energy into everything that is at a mundane physical realm, which is very easy to do because it's marketed, it's promoted, your friends are doing it, your neighbors are doing it, you know, you don't want to be outcast and shunned. So you get into a mentality, and I would say more of a rut with keeping up with the Joneses, with staying, concentrating on the physical. But then also you get on the flip side of that with people that are so spiritual that they are out of touch with the physical. You know, it's all about keeping a proper balance. You know, doing things for your spirit, but knowing that you have to do things for your physical. Keeping in perspective. If I'm playing a video game, which I very rarely do, but if I'm playing a video game, I'm going to talk smack like the next person. But we're discussing something that is metaphysical or deep, or we're being serious about something, or we're at a mound doing a particular ritual or pouring out libations. I'm going to go with the energy that is open heart and my intentions are pure. I'm not going to go in there with an egotistical, arrogant attitude. You have to know what's the difference. If I'm on the basketball court, I'm not going to block somebody like, oh, beloved, you know, I'm sorry for blocking the basketball. I'm like, oh, yeah, I got you. You know, it's all about shifting your energy for whatever environment that you're in. So that's another thing that I see that is a problem. Okay, third one, another one, and this is in no particular order, because the way my mind works, I see problems, I automatically see solutions. So I can run a list of problems down, but also in turn I can run a list of solutions down. So this may not be the top three per se or any particular order. Another problem that I see with people is accepting guidance. You know, another problem with this human condition is the ability to accept guidance from a master, from a teacher, from a counselor, and so forth and so on. You have to be humble, and that's going back to being brutally honest with yourself. There are some people that really need help. There are some people that need to, like, just to get something off of their chest. Once you release certain aspects that are holding you back by way of writing, by way of putting it in a song, by way of teaching it, or by way of sharing it with someone that you trust, it opens up, it relieves you of that energy and allow other energy to come in. Once you're boggled down with all the victim mentality, all the selfishness, or I'm too good to listen to him or her, then that's going to keep you stuck in that rut. But once you relieve that, then you're able to receive higher channels of information. So I see another problem with people is, I mean, it's just hard for them to be humble and just accept help from other people. You know, one of the things I pride myself on is I'm an opportunist when it comes to learning. And I learned this from my cousin Orlando James, my blood cousin, who co-created Mind Right Radio with me. He said that I can learn from a bum. He said that when we were very young, and or not very young, but we were like early 20s or whatever. And he said that, and it just stuck with me. He was like, I can learn from a bum. And, you know, and I just meditated on that. And I was like, I came to a realization is, you're right. You know, but we look at people, especially if they're not so flashy. Like, you wouldn't tell what I was on if I was out in the streets. I don't wear any particular garb or hair wrap or jewelry or anything like that. I look like a regular human being for the most part, you know? So if I come to someone who may be in a position, maybe they're corporate America, you know, 6 figures, $250,000 home or whatever, they may have a mentality of like, who is this Joe Blow? I don't have to listen to him, you know? But when you go with a mentality that you can learn from a bum, like, are you serious? You're always going to be open. But I see a problem, especially around the masculine energy, where we get into this egotistical machoism, where it feels like I have to talk over you, or I have to show you up, or I have to prove that I have more information than you. You know, and once you learn your dispositions and you learn about the elements, when you get around people like that, you just sort of fall back, you know, where the old me would have come back to them and want to debate them and, you know, prove them wrong, so to speak. But the new me, and what I teach and what I recommend is when you get around people that are not receptive, that are real boisterous and real just want to talk over you, just play silent. You know, just give them the opposite element, and that always diffuses that energy. That's just one thing. But if you're the person where you're not able to take guidance from someone, do you really need to look yourself in the mirror and say, do I have all the answers? Yes, you do have all the answers, but there's certain things that have to be unlocked for that information to come on the surface, so to speak, from your subconscious mind. So we all have the answers, but a lot of us need guidance in order to find them answers.